What is going on, guys, and welcome. In this video we're going to create three nav bars with a drop down menus, and over here you can see that we're going to start with the most basic one where we have a top nav bar. However, it has a drop down menu over here like this, and we're going to continue with a side drop down menu over here. So if we have a sidebar, and you can see that we can create over here a side drop down menu, and next we're going to create a multiple drop downs. So here you can see that I have a one drop down menu and then the one on the left, and also over here we have the same thing. Now this is going to be very easy, so let's fire up our text editors and let's get to work. So how do we create a drop down menu within a nav bar? So as always, we're going to start within our HTML skeleton. So over here I'm just going to create a nav tags over here like this, and within the nav tags we're obviously going to place a unordered list, and over here within unordered list we're going to say list items, and we would want a link over here also to have a href attribute to have a hashtag, and after that we're going to create a, let's say, a name home, right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this like, I don't know, 4 times again, and we're going to say about, and over here we're going to say survey, and over here we're going to write a, I don't know, something like drop down, right? This is going to be our drop down menu. Now what we need to do is, if we want to create a drop down within this, let's say, drop down list, we need to go within this list item over here, the one that we want to create a drop down menu, and over here we need to create another unordered list within a list items, right? So here it's going to be list item. Here we're going to create another link over here. We're going to say href over here like this, and it's going to have a hashtag as a value of href. And over here again we're going to write a, let's say in this case I'm just going to say this is going to be link 1, and I'm just going to copy this like, I don't know, 4 times, right? So now you can see what's happening. So now let's go ahead and actually style this nav bar and this drop down menu. So over here I'm going to create a style tags, and within the style tags the first thing that I would want to do is actually target all the elements over here, and I want to say that I would want them to have a margin 0 and a padding 0, so it's much more easier for us to work with, right? And after that what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all the unordered lists, and I would want to say that I would want them to list style type to be none, right? So this is going to be pretty easy. I'm just selecting all the unordered lists. Now we need to keep in mind that we have 2 types of unordered lists over here, right? We have the ones that are direct children of the navigation over here, and we have the descendants, and there's a huge difference between 2 of them, right? So first let's select the list items over here, so they would be displayed in line, right? And the way I would write over here, I would say that nav ul li over here, and I would want them to be display and display inline block. So this is going to be our inline block. Now you can see how all my list items are actually displayed in line, right? The problem is with this last one that you can see that it's pushing all the way up, right? So the way I would target that one, I would actually say nav, and then I would want to select ul li, and over here ul, and I would want to say that I would want a position absolute, and then I would say the coordinates pretty much, and I would say that this would be 100% over here, and left it would be 0. Now there's a couple of things happening. First of all, you can see that it moved away all the way to the bottom, right? And the reason for that is that we selected position absolute, right? So over here, if we would write for list item to be position relative, you can see how it moved all the way to the top, because right now actually list items, these ones, right, are actually holding this unordered list accountable. Now we also need to remember that we are actually selecting this unordered list, right? I'm not selecting all the lists. I don't want all the lists to be absolute to the top. I just want this one, right? Because what I want to do is actually, as I'm going to be hovering over this list items, I want it to be displayed, this unordered list. So here I'm going to say display, and I'm going to say none, so you can see how it disappeared. However, if I create over here a nav ul li hover nav ul li, and over here I'm just going to write hover, and I could say that I would want this child over here, this ul, over here like this. I would want it to be display, and I'm going to write display block. So now you can see what's going to happen. That's as I'm hovering, you can see what's happening, right? They're actually displaying right away. Now we haven't done any kind of fancy work. We just pretty much did the backbones for everything. So now obviously we can go ahead and we can just give it a little bit more nicer style, right? So what I'm going to do again, I'm just going to select specific UL. In this case is going to be again the child of a nav. So again, we're just styling this one. We're not going to be styling this one. We're going to be styling the top one, right? So what I would say is that I would want to have a width of, let's say, 100%. Then I would want a height to be like 60 pixels. Then I would want a line height to be 60 pixels. Then I would want a background color to be like, I don't know, dark gray. Then I would probably want a text align center. And that's pretty much, I think, is going to be it for now for whatever we're doing, right? So we're just going to make a little bit more space, and let's add whatever we have to the list items, right? So now we're going to target actual list items. And what we want to do is we want to say that list items should be, let's say width should be like 100 pixels, something like this. And again, I think that's going to be pretty much it for the top list items. So let's move along and actually select a anchors within a list item. So over here we're going to write ul li, and over here we're going to say a, and we're going to say that we want them to be display block. Over here, display block, and we would want them to have text decoration none, and over here we want let's say color, and we would want the color to be chocolate. Right, we're going to say that this is going to be like chocolate, something like this. And now the last thing what we can do is actually we can change it around, and we can select all the anchors. So all the anchors are affected. So this is the case where we would want to select not just the anchors that are actually on the top, but we want to select all the anchors. So you can see what's happening, right? And now let's go ahead and actually work with this list item, right? So the first thing we want to do is actually also add a background color, and we want to add the same background color, dark gray. And let's check it out what we have over here. So you can see the problem is that it's so small, right? And the way we fix that, actually we say width, and we say the width to be 100%. So we go back, and you can see that now the width is actually exactly 100%, and the 100% of whatever the list item over here we have, right? Now, after that, what we want to do is actually go ahead and actually change some properties as we're hovering over our anchors over here, our links. So the way I would do that, I would write nav, ul, li, a, and here I would say hover. And what I would want to do is just actually pretty much create a little border. So I'm going to say a border to be 2 pixels solid black, something like this. So let's go ahead and check it out. So now you can see what's happening. As I'm hovering over them, you can see that I have these little borders, right? So this is how we can actually create a very simple drop-down menu that has a little hovering effect over them, and pretty much those are the basics. So how do we create a simple sidebar that actually has a drop-down menu? Now again, as always, we'll need to start with our nav tags over here, and obviously over here we're going to place our unordered list, and within the unordered list we're going to place in list items, and we're going to say that again the list item is going to have a href attribute, and this is going to be equal to hashtag. And over here, we're just going to say again home, and we're just going to copy this, like, I don't know, 4 times, right? Again, this is going to be about, this is going to be a, I don't know, survey, something like this, survey, and this is going to be our dropdown, right? So it's going to be dropdown over here like this. Now again, within this dropdown, we're going to create another unordered list. So here I'm just going to say UL, and I'm going to create another unordered list, right? And again, I'm just going to have the same pretty much things. I'm just going to say that this is going to have a href attribute over here like this, and within that href attribute, this is going to be a, let's say, menu, let's say 1, right? So again, we're just going to select the whole line, and we're just going to copy it, like again 4 times. So again, the main goal right now is we have done with HTML, with setting up our backbone for our Navbar. Now we would need to actually place this menu exactly on a side, and that's actually going to be really easy. So now that we're done with creating our HTML backbone, over here we're going to create a style tags over here like this, style, not strong, or here style like this, and within the style tags we're obviously going to start styling. Now the first thing that I want to show you is why we're doing this list style type none, over here list style type over here, and we always say none. And before that, we always write the margin and padding 0, and we obviously therefore we cannot see what we're doing. But you can see these annoying little circles, and if we write list style type none, then we actually get rid of those circles. Now over here, what we want to do is obviously, as always, just set all of them all the elements margin padding 0, margin 0, padding 0, something like this, padding 0, and now you can see how they all lined up. And again, as always, we would need to want to start over here with this unordered list, right? Because we want to place it over here somewhere, right? So the way we would do that, we would write nav, we would write ul, li, and then again unordered list, that is the child of the list items. And over here, what we would want to say is position, and we would say position absolute, and then we would say top 100, top 0, and over here we're going to say that left is going to be 100%. Now you can see that it pretty much disappears all the way over here, right? And that's not what we want. And the reason why it disappears is, well, there's actually 2 reasons. First, we would need to set the list items to relative, and then we would need to have a width. So here, if I write nav, ul, li, and I would say that they would have a width over here, and let's say that we're going to have width of, let's say, 100 pixels over here like this, and then I would want to say that I would want their position to be relative, so you can see what happens, right? Right away, my unordered list comes all the way here because now I have set width. And you know what? I'm also going to say a background color. I'm just going to add it like a dark gray. So over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be a dark gray. And now you can see that as I'm over here selecting these list items, you can see that only the first ones are dark gray, right? However, if I would just say that all of them, all the list items that are descendants of unordered list would have the same property, now you can see what happens, right? That all of them actually have the same style. So over here, I can write the pretty basic things. I can say text align, I can move them center. And I think that's going to be pretty much done for list items, right? So now let's create a new rule for the line height, because we obviously would want it to be a little bit bigger. So the way we would do that, again, you can see our unordered list, right? So what we can do right over here, we can say line height, let's say 60 pixels, right? So it's just a little bit bigger. So it's a little bit more foreseeable, right? Now let's go ahead and actually start styling a anchors or links of our nav, right? So here I can easily write that I would want to select all of them, right? I don't need to write the actual selector because I would want all of my links look the same, right? And I would want to get rid of a text decoration first of all. I would want to say this is going to be none. Then I would want to say that the color should be something different. So I'm going to say a color to be, let's say, chocolate over here like this. Then I'm going to say that, I don't know, what else I would want. Maybe border? No border. Let's just create a hover effect as we're hovering. So I'm going to say nav, ul, li, over here like this. And then we're going to say hover. And then over here, we're going to say that as we're hovering, we want a border 2 pixels solid black, something like this. So now you can see that as I'm hovering over them, they're displaying black. But now you can see that we haven't done the display block property. Therefore, only as we're hovering the links, you can see that only as we're hovering over the text, they're actually hovering, right? So in this case, we would need to write display and display block. So now I can see what happens. Now as I'm hovering over the whole link, it is displaying the whole width, right? Now after that, what we want to do is actually display only this unordered list only as we're hovering over this list item, right? So what we would need to do over here, you see this unordered list. Now we're targeting only this unordered list, and I would say that display, and I would say display none over here like this. And then as I'm hovering over it, so I would find a list item again, and I would say that as I'm hovering over them, so over here we're going to create a new rule, and we're going to say that nav ul li, and over here we're going to say hover, and we're going to say that our unordered list over here, unordered list, display block, right? So we're going to say display, and we're going to say display block. So let's check it out what we have. And sure enough, as I'm hovering over here over this dropdown, I have my unordered list showing over here. So now you can see how easy it is to actually create this drop-down menu even on the sidebar. So how do we create a nav bar with multiple drop-down menus? Well, the first thing we would need to do is obviously create our HTML tags for that, right? So over here I'm going to create again a nav, and within a nav we're going to create a unordered list, and within unordered list we're going to create list items, right? So over here I'm just going to say that list items should be something like 4 of them. So over here it's going to have a href attribute, and that href attribute is going to have a value of home over here. This is going to be our link, and this is when we're going to copy this. Let's say info over here, and then it's going to be about, and this is going to be like survey or something, right? So this is going to be our first line, right? And after that, we're going to create a couple of more drop downs. So we're going to create a drop down out of this survey. So the way we would do that, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and I'm just going to say copy, and we're going to create a little bit more space over here, and we're just going to paste it. And over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be a menu 1 over here like this, and I'll do that with all of them. I'm going to say that this is going to be menu 1, and over here also it's going to be the same thing, and the last one also is going to be, well, you know what, let's call it this one drop down, right? And what we're going to do after that, we're going to create one more drop down menu over here. So I'm going to paste this, and now you can see over here how we have a drop down menu, right? So what we can do is actually start styling, and obviously we will need to do that in the head element. So I'm going to go to the head element over here like this, and I'm going to say that I would want to create a style tags. And the first thing what I want to do is obviously again create margins and padding 0. But let's just do a little bit different this time. Let's just create let's say for all the unordered lists, let's create a background color. Let's say blue, something like this. So now you can see how all of them are blue. Well, maybe blue wasn't the best color. Let's create something like yellow, because you can see that our links by default are always blue, right? So let's create yellow. So now you can see that pretty much everything is yellow because unordered lists are going down the line. Or let's say over here, if we create list items and we say that background color for all the list items should be, let's say, red. So we can see why we're doing the paddings and actually margins of 0, right? So what we would need to do over here is, let's say if we say that ULs, all the unordered lists should have a list style type none. So then we're going to get rid of the circle, but you can see still over here this yellow, right? And this is our unordered list, and this is because of the paddings and margins. So over here, if I create all the elements, and I say that I would want all my elements to have a margin 0, and a padding 0. You can see that now everything is red, which is the color of our list item, right? And let's just start styling one by one everything, and we're pretty much going to be jumping a little bit back and forth. However, we just kind of want to do it I don't know, in order, right? So over here I'm going to say nav, and I'm going to say ul and li, right? Because I only want to style the first my first list items over here, these ones, right? Those are the ones that I want to style. And the first thing I'm going to say is going to display, and I'm going to want them to display Inline-Block, right? So again, as always, what happens is that this unordered list over here, these ones, they're pushing this survey all the way to the top, right? However, they are in line, but the rest of them, they're actually styled as block elements, right? That's why they're not in a line. They're actually from top to bottom, right? So the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to say nav ul li ul, and we would want a position to be absolute. Or here we're going to say position absolute, and we're going to say that we would want a top to be 100%, or here like this 100%, and left also to be 0, right? However, we need to remember that these ones need to be right now position relative, because those are the ones that are going to be actually holding them accountable, right? Because before that, before we wrote over here relative, they were actually, this unordered list was somewhere here in the bottom, right? Let me just show you, right? It was somewhere, you can see over here. But once I set this position to relative, over here like this, you can see how it is all the way to the top, right? So the next thing that we want to do is actually deal with this drop down menu, right? So what we would want to do again is actually create a nav, and then we say ul, and then we say li, and then we say again ul, and then again li, and then ul, right? So this is how we actually get to the submenu that we want, right? And again, we say that we want them to be position absolute over here, position absolute, right? And then we want to say that we would want it to be a, let's say, left to be this case 100% over here, and we would want to be top to be 100%, to be 0, sorry, right? So now that you can see that they're pushed all the way to the top, and the reason for that is, again, we set this to absolute. However, these ones are relative, right? So we would need to add these list items, right? The second one, these ones over here, we would want to set them as a relative, so it would be sitting right next to it, right? So again, we just create over here a new rule, and we're going to say the nav ul li over here, that we would want them to be position, and we would want them position to be relative, right? So now you can see what happens is that how we actually got them to be lining up, right? And obviously what we can do right now is we can say that, let's start with the last one, that we would want them to be display and display none over here like this. And we're going to create a new rule right on top, where we're just going to say the nav ul li over here hover. We're going to say that uls are going to be display block. So let's check it out what we have. As we're hovering over this one, you can see that this one is showing up, right? And again, we can do the same thing over here with this one. You can see that we have a display, and we have display none over here like this. So now this one disappears. However, what we can do is we can set the new rule over here, and we can say nav ul li hover ul over here, and then we say that this one should be display block. So we go back over here, and we say display block. So you can see what happens as I'm hovering, all of them, now they're actually appearing. And now you can see that it was very primitive the way it looks. However, we can obviously make it a much more nicer style, right? So we would probably first start with the actual nav ul, right? So I'm going to go somewhere over here, and I'm going to say that nav UL, I would want to be a, I don't know, height to be, let's say 60 pixels as always. I'm going to say that the line height also should be like something like 60 pixels, right? Then what else we can do? I don't know, text align, maybe center, something like this. Then after that, what we would want to do, maybe a little bit better background color. So we're going to say a background color. We're going to say something like dark gray, something like this. Then after that, what we want to do is actually work with these list items, and we would probably want them to have a different background color. Let's say we're going to say a background color to be something like, I don't know, let's try beige, and let's add a border radius, and we're going to say that we want border radius to be like 5 pixels, right? So it's pretty dumb, but it's gonna get our job done. So here I'm gonna say padding, and I'm gonna say padding 0.20, so they're a little bit bigger. And I think now we can actually go and start working with over here with this with our anchor tags or links in our actually document. So over here I'm just gonna say list items, and what I'm gonna say that I would want a text decoration to be none. I would want them to be display block because I want to click them everywhere, not just when I'm clicking on a link. And I would want a color to be like, let's say something like chocolate, right? So now that we're done actually with our links, and you can see over here, it's hard to see because I have still this background color. Let's actually go ahead and start working with next set of on our list over here, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually I'm going to say that I would want a, let's say, background color over here, but I'm just going to say that the background color, I'm just going to care about this list items over here. So I'm going to say again that this is going to be beige. So I'm going to say background color, and this is going to be beige over here like this. So let's check it out what we have. You can see that they turned beige. Now this unordered list, I would want a width to be 100%, so it's exactly the width of the list item over here. So you can see this would happen, right? Now, what we can also do is, as we're hovering over our list items, we would want to have some type of border. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna create a new item over here. I'm gonna say nav ul.li, and over here I'm just gonna say hover, and we would write over here that we want a color to be a little bit different. So let's say I'm just going to say the color is going to be, as I'm hovering, is going to be black. All right, so let's check it out. You can see how it's turning black, and the same thing happens as I'm going over the menu. And the last thing we would need to do is actually get a background color for our list items. So I'll write nav ul li over here, and then again ul, and then again we're going to write ul and li, and over here we're going to say that background color we would want a beige. So let's go and check it out what we have. You can see that I have a beige over here. So now you can see how easy it was to actually create a multiple drop down menus within our nav bar. And if you want to just add it somewhere else, let's say that right now you have this unordered list, right? And you can just copy this, and let's say that you want to add it over here. Where's the info? So we go over here and just paste it over here like this, and let's check it out, right? And now our info has the menu, right? Because we already set the rules for multiple dimensions, right? So this is how easy it was.